Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar this afternoon for OACAC. My name is Adria. I am sorry that we are starting a couple minutes late, but definitely want to dive right into getting into this great information you're going to hear about today. There is an ability for you to be able to ask questions, and so use that Q&A button on your screen to throw out questions to your panel this afternoon. There are no videos or microphones available for you to speak to the panel today. So that's all off and a part of the webinar, but realize that we have webinars all fall. So visit the oacac.org website to sign up for those. And if you missed something or want to refer to what was discussed this afternoon, you can hit those recordings on oacac.org as well. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the panel and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. I'm going to share my screen now. And we'll get started on our presentation about the application process for international students. Okay. Can you guys see my video? Or do you see it? Okay. So I think let's just go right in with Aaron.
Great. Hi, I'm Aaron Bixler. I'm the Senior Associate Director of International Enrollment at Miami University in Oxford. I want to take a few minutes to start off to talk to you a little bit about the application process for our international students who are enrolled at U.S. high schools. About 25% of the international students that enroll at Miami come from U.S. high schools. This is a topic I enjoy speaking to students about. First thing, when you're applying to a U.S. university, you have to know when to apply. And so when are the application deadlines? Deadlines can look very similar between different U.S. universities and also between different programs within the same of the university. For example, students could have an application deadline for admission that is later than a deadline for scholarships, or there could be a deadline that's earlier for a program that has few seats compared to a program that has a lot of seats. So be aware of those differences. In addition, I'd like to point out that some deadlines at a lot of institutions this year have been moved back as a lot of schools have started later, and we're all kind of getting used to a new way of doing things. And for example, we've moved a number of our application deadlines back about a month. Really quickly, I wanted to talk about the different decision notification plans and the deadlines that are associated with that. A lot of folks know about this, but as a quick review, early decision is a legally binding contract where a student who applies early decision and is admitted, they're bound to attend that institution. Those deadlines can be as early as October or as late as December 1st or anywhere in between there. Early action is a deadline, usually comes a little bit later, can be in December, January. Students who apply early action can be admitted early, typically by the beginning of February, but they're not bound to attend their institution if they're admitted. Finally, there's usually a regular decision or a kind of final application deadline that can be in January, February, March. Students who apply then can generally find their decision in March or April. I always recommend that students apply earlier if they can, not necessarily early decision, but earlier just because, especially for our international students, there may be limits on certain competitive programs, number of places there, and also on scholarship and financial aid dollars. So applying earlier can sometimes help you with that. Next slide. So once you know when you need to apply, you need to know how do you apply. The first thing you need to do is submit the application form. The very common are these centralized applications, the most common of which is the Common Application, which is accepted by hundreds of universities. It opens every August 1st. Other centralized applications would include the Coalition Application, the Universal College Application, which are used by less schools, and the Common Black College Application, which is used by over 50 HBCUs. So while there's centralized applications, many universities also, either in addition to the Common Application or exclusively, have their own application that they host on their own website. The University of California system is known for having its own application process. Georgetown University, another example of a school that has its own application. At Miami University, specifically, we use the Common Application. Most students apply with the combination, but we also have our own application just for international students that we host on our website, and we'll accept either one of those. In addition to the application, there's often an application fee associated with applying to a university, and that can be anywhere from $50 to $90, $100, but often for students or it's a hardship, there'll be fee waivers available. So you know when to apply, you sent in the application form. Next comes the academic documents. And I want to spend a little bit of time on the transcripts because this is something that can be different for international students at US schools than for US students. Now, if you're an international student who's been at a US high school since 9th grade and you've only attended this US high school, then it's fairly straightforward. You know, you just submit your application from your US high school and you're pretty much, or your transcript from your US high school, and you're pretty much set to go. However, a lot of our international students who are enrolled at US high schools, they've come to the US sometime during their high school career, maybe after 9th grade, maybe after 10th grade, sometimes even after 11th grade. So they've done a portion of their education outside of the US, and now they're finishing it at a US high school. For those students, we always encourage them to submit not only their current US high school transcript, but also to submit their transcripts or their academic records from their previous studies, whatever country they were before they came to the US to finish their high school education. Then we will look at those, evaluate those, so we can get a better kind of fuller picture of the student's academic career, really from grade 9 through 12, regardless of how long they've been in the US or how long they were maybe in their home country. Recommendation letters are also often requested as part of the application process. For some institutions, those are going to be optional. At others, they're required. Sometimes they're required just for scholarships. Sometimes they're required for admission. Some schools, they don't want to mess with them at all. Recommendation letters typically are written by either a current teacher or a counselor. Then finally, as part of the application, there's generally a place for students to list their awards, recognitions, activities, things like that that let us know a little bit more about them as a student and as an individual. The other piece of that is some institutions, like the recommendation letter, they're going to require a personal essay. Some don't require one. The common application, any university that uses the common application typically will use the common application essay. There are a lot of questions about this from international students. You know, what do I write? How do I put this, how do I put this down? I'm not really sure what to do. So I put a few things here on the slide, kind of what I recommend for students. Specifically, the two I would really point out would be, to share something the reader does not already know. So you don't need to talk about, your grades or your transcript. Tell us something we don't know yet, and to make it personal, make it about you. Certainly, international students at US high schools have a really built-in topic. They've come from one country to another, and there's certainly an adjustment process that goes there, and it's a great base for writing an essay. Moving on. The other piece I wanted to spend a little bit of time on was standardized tests, because this is something that can be different for international students at US high schools than it can be for their US classmates. Especially now, in that so many US universities are going test optional starting this fall. Many schools that weren't previously test optional now are. So while schools are going test optional, and that means you do not need to submit an SAT or an ACT score, that does not mean that international students still are not required to provide proof of English proficiency. Proof of English proficiency doesn't have to be in a test score, although two very common English proficiency tests are the TOEFL test and the IELTS test. More and more US universities are also accepting the Duolingo English test that can actually be done at home. So if you're not able to take a test or you don't want to take a test, there's other ways that students at US high schools can meet the proof of English proficiency requirement. Some US universities will accept completion of IB English A as meeting their English proficiency requirements. Some schools will accept completion of AP English as meeting their English proficiency requirement. Some will accept if the student's been in the US for a certain number of years. Say you've been in a US high school for 3 years, that's sufficient for meeting their English proficiency requirement. So test optional does not necessarily mean English proficiency optional. So definitely explore what a school's English proficiency requirements are and how those can be met. Then finally, once a student's been admitted, if they're in the US on a student visa, Typically, they're going to be asked to submit financial documentation, financial statement form, bank statement, same things that they needed when they initially came to the US on a student visa. And those would be required before we can do the transfer of the student's visa record from their current school, from their high school to the university. Generally, in addition to the financial documents, sometimes a current copy of the current visa I-20 or a copy of the passport will also be required. For our students who are here on other non-immigrant visas, such as a H or L visa, typically a copy of the visa will need to be submitted after admission, and then those financial documentation requirements can be waived for that student. Finally, after you submit your application and all of those supporting documentation, a couple tips, just stay in touch with us. Each school has different requirements on what they're going to ask for their international applicants, be they from US high schools or otherwise. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask if you've met all of those requirements, if your application is complete. Check out our websites to make sure you're looking at the most recent application requirements, and read your emails that we send. We're going to certainly let you know if we need additional documentation from you, and that's usually how we do it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. And Megan, go ahead.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Megan Lindell. I work for the University of Cincinnati here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I just want to make sure you can see me here. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about how you can fund your education. We get a lot of questions from international students that are in the US, just kind of surrounding in-state tuition, tuition guarantees, if they can work on campus, whether or not they'll fill out the FAFSA, and then scholarship opportunities. So I'm going to go through these opportunities with you. Next slide. So the first one is a question we get quite often, residency for tuition purposes. Will I qualify for in-state tuition? So first, what I would recommend would be to look at your immigration status and your visa type that you entered the US with as a non-immigrant. So if you did enter with a visa, then if you entered with a B type visa, C, D, F, J, M, or some other types here, give me a second, okay, and Q. So F1 would be the most common that we hear, right, the student visa. If you've entered with these type of visas, then you would not be eligible for establishing in-state residency for tuition purposes. However, if you are here, for example, as an H4, a dependent of an H1B visa holder, or say an L2, a dependent of an L1, or if you are a US permanent resident, or you are a political refugee, asylee, and then also, of course, if you're a US citizen, and then finally, if you've qualified for DACA status, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, then these statuses would allow you potentially to be considered for in-state tuition, or even the metro rate for if you're attending an Ohio school, potentially getting a discounted rate if you're in Kentucky or Indiana, for example, in Cincinnati. So I would recommend then that you fill out the Ohio residency application after you've been admitted. If you're a US citizen or US permanent resident, then oftentimes that residency determination will be already determined for you when you're admitted, and it will be listed on your admission letter. If it's not listed, then again, you can fill out our Ohio residency application. This goes for all of the schools that are in attendance today and the schools in Ohio. Next slide. Tuition guarantees. This policy will vary by school, but essentially a tuition guarantee will keep your tuition fees and oftentimes even your board charges for the dormitories the same for all 4 years, 5 in the case of co-op programs. Something to consider is that some fees or charges will not be included in the tuition guarantee, such as the non-resident surcharge or that out-of-state portion of your bill. So for more information, I would definitely encourage that you look into this with each of the schools that you are applying to on their website, often found on their Bursar website page. Next slide. And then working on campus. That's another great way to fund your education. And we often get questions from international students as to whether or not they can work on campus. And the answer is yes. If you're an F1 student, you can work on campus up to 20 hours per week when school is in session, and you can work full-time on breaks and over the summer. And of course, this also goes some other student statuses as well, or other immigration statuses as well. Some some things to keep in mind would be a work-study position versus a student worker. So if you're seeing jobs that are advertised as work-study, oftentimes those are tied to federal funding. So those are going to be limited to students that are U.S. citizens or U.S. permanent residents that are eligible for work-study through the FAFSA, which we'll talk about the FAFSA in a minute here. Student worker positions, however, are funded by the university itself. And so you would want to apply for those positions. Common jobs on campus would be like a student ambassador, front desk assistants. We get a lot of students working in our residence halls, campus services, and then we get a lot of students that apply for as a tutor or a TA if they've done really well in a class and they're able to help other students with that coursework. So oftentimes going through the jobs website on your campus, on your university's website will be helpful there as well. Next slide. Okay, so the FAFSA. We often get the question, would you fill out the FAFSA? The FAFSA, first of all, is the free application for federal student aid. Okay, this application basically will determine federal financial aid dollars, but it can also be used to determine institutional or university aid dollars, as well as state dollars, and even some kind of private scholarship dollars as well in some cases. So if you are a U.S. citizen or a U.S. permanent resident, yes, you want to fill out the FAFSA. Your parents do not have to be U.S. citizens or permanent residents, but if you yourself are and you have a social security number, then definitely we recommend you fill out the FAFSA form. If you are DACA eligible, so that deferred action for childhood arrivals, you might be able to fill out the FAFSA form. At the University of Cincinnati, we also have you fill out the FAFSA form. And this would be used not for federal dollars, not for federal aid dollars, but for institutional aid dollars, okay? So this is gonna vary by school. And then for foreign nationals or pending permanent residency status, U.S. permanent residency status, you would not want to fill out the FAFSA. If you are filling out the FAFSA, you can be in the U.S. or overseas. So we even have students that are U.S. citizens, permanent residents that are still in high school overseas finishing up, and they fill out the FAFSA if they're entering the U.S. to study. The priority deadline is October 1st of the fall before you would start. So basically right now, if you're starting in the fall of 2021, then you would want to fill out the FAFSA starting October 1st of 2020. Typically it's due by June, but there'll be different deadlines by school, and priority deadlines will mean potentially more aid from the school. So it's important to meet the early deadlines. And then finally, scholarships versus financial aid. So when you're looking at scholarships, you'll have need-based scholarships and merit-based scholarships, and it's going to vary by school. So for example, the University of Cincinnati, we do a lot of merit-based scholarships for our international students. Some universities will also offer need-based scholarships where they'll ask for you to fill out the College Board profile or CSS profile application instead of the FAFSA. And that'll give them a good picture of what your family can afford to spend on college. So just keep that in mind that that might be a requirement. You want to look, when you're looking for merit-based scholarships, which would be based on how you do in your academics during school, qualitative factors, such as your extracurricular activities, your application, your letters of recommendation. You would want to kind of keep in mind whether or not there's a supplemental application required or an interview, or whether that university will just consider you for scholarships automatically. Also look to see if test scores are required versus test optional. And then pay attention to deadlines. Early deadlines are very important for scholarship review. And then also the renewal terms are also very important. So for example, at UC, we have no additional application. We have a December 1st early deadline. You can renew your scholarship automatically for 8 semesters. You have to maintain a 3.2 GPA, and you have a community service requirement. So just look into this with each of the universities that you're going to apply for. I'm going to turn it over to Selma. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Selma Benaida, and I work at Kent State University. So I would like to go a little bit deeper on what my colleagues Erin and Megan touched upon as far as immigration status is concerned. I know we get a lot of questions about how students should apply. Should I apply as a domestic or international applicant based on your immigration status? So I have kind of organized and tried to categorize to make it really easy and convenient for all of you. So you are considered a domestic applicant, so you would complete a regular domestic application, as many institutions will have two separate applications or one application where you have to designate whether you are an international or a domestic student. And so if you are a green card holder or a permanent resident, then you fall under the category of domestic applicant, as well as if you have refugee status or asylee status, as well as J Treaty. And with J Treaty are Native American students who were in Canada. And it's about them being able to move around North America freely without having to be considered international. For international applicants, there's also a lot of categories that fall into that. Most commonly, we see a lot of F students, H's and L's, as well as DACA students at our institution. But you can always have any visa category that doesn't fall under these. Technically, you would apply as an international student. Of course, we also have some instances where students may currently hold a tourist visa and they're interested in applying to university. You are able to apply to university, just be aware that you cannot engage in study on your student visa. You most likely will have to go back and re-enter on an F visa, for instance. So that kind of summarizes your categories. And if you are an international student, then after you are admitted, as Erin was talking about the process and the admission documents that are required to make an admission decision, once you're admitted, you have another process that begins, which I'm outlining on this slide. And so typically you would get admitted, and then you need to, depending on your current status, either request your CBIS record to be transferred from your current high school or your current community college or institution to the university that you have been admitted to. And then usually we also need proof of finances and the bio page of your passport, a copy of that, if you have not submitted that at the application stage. And this is where really each institution is different. So we really encourage you to stay in touch with your institutions that you're applying to find out what their process. Some institutions will require that you submit financial documentations at the time of applications, while others will require them at the time after you're admitted, or if you have them before, it's preferred but not required. For instance, at Kent State, if you have them at the time of application, it will help the process go a little bit quicker, as there isn't a go back and forth between you and us requesting those documents, but you also have the option to wait until you're admitted and also see what automatic scholarships, merit-based scholarships we have for you to make that decision. And then at that stage, the school is able to verify the documents and issue an I-20 form, or if we get students on a J status, a DS 2019 form. And then most schools will send those forms along with your admission letter or welcome packet and any pre-arrival information. It's important to note that with COVID, the government has allowed institutions to issue electronic documents, as many institutions, especially in Ohio, were on lockdown in March, and many people were working from home. So the government made it okay for us to issue electronic documents and for many students to be able to use them to get a visa or at the port of entry. So all three branches of the government are in agreement with allowing that. So don't be surprised if maybe some schools send you electronic documentation instead of a physical copy in the mail. Of course, another common question that many of the international students who are currently in the US may experience or may be confused about is changing immigration status. So sometimes you might be an H4 or an L2, and then you're thinking, should I keep my status since it allows me to pursue a degree? But then I'm not eligible maybe for OPT and CPT. And if that's something that's really important to you, some students may elect to change their status from whatever category they are to F1. Typically, this process used to be done in a few months. However, currently the process is very lengthy, and we have been encouraging a lot of our students who are considering a change of status to also involve a legal counsel, because the process has gotten much more complicated in the past year or so. So of course, students are not required to apply for a change of status. If you are in a visa category that allows you to engage in full-time or part-time study and you are degree seeking, that is really up to you to make that decision. And of course, when students are changing status, as Megan was talking about with who is eligible to apply for in-state tuition, you also have to keep that in mind when you're making those decisions, and really understand the full impact of that decision of changing your status. And now I will turn it over to Lori. She will share some resources that universities have available for international students.
Thank you, Selma. My name is Lori. I work at Ohio University. I am the Assistant Director for International Admissions. And I'm going to talk to you today about resources that international students should look for once they get to their university. So every university is going to have an International Student Service Office, and this could be named something different, but they all have a primary function of serving the international students with their immigration issues. So there might be a separate orientation that international students go through that will talk about the rules and regulations and how to stay in compliance with your particular visa. An advisor would be a professional staff member that the university assigns to you, and this person would work with you throughout your bachelor, master, PhD degree seeking time at the university and help you with any kind of immigration issues that you might have. Some universities might have peer mentors. I know we do, and these are other students that are assigned to a new international student to kind of help them with the cultural and day-to-day aspects of maybe that culture shock of a new school, a new country, and a whole new educational system. So they're people that are similar to your age and can help you with that transition. An ISS office can help you with any kind of travel advice. So there might be certain documents that you need to leave or re-enter the country. So it's good to know what those documents are. And then if you have a job on campus, you will need to file taxes every year, and they can help you with that process. And then of course the CPT and OPT that we've discussed already. So once you're on campus, you want to think about who is on your side, who's going to be part of your network that's going to help you succeed in college. So an academic advisor would be a person that is assigned to you, and they're going to help you with the academic side of things. Make sure you're taking the right classes to graduate on time. Kind of like a high school counselor would, how they help you select classes to make sure that you're going to graduate from high school. We're all going to offer some kind of tutoring services. So this could be one-on-one tutoring. It could be supplemental instruction, which is usually exactly what it sounds like. It's instruction that's outside the classroom that's usually led by an upper class person. So someone who's already taken that class, done well, and they're going to teach the same material, but maybe in a way that might be more familiar to you. So if you're struggling in a class, look for SI. It's usually free. And right now, since it's virtual, it's really easy to attend those sessions. The different centers on campus, so we have a writing center, a math center, a science center. They can all help you with your homework and help you in those particular subjects that you might be struggling with. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the librarian. My mother was a librarian actually at University of Cincinnati, so I know they have a great library. And each reference librarian is assigned a different major, so they can help you with those research projects. And when you come to college, you're at university, you're not going to have your parents there to make sure you do your homework. So you're going to learn new skills, time management, how to be efficient. So those are some of the things that are important for you to gain while you're at university. And it's not just about your particular major. And I always encourage students to get involved on campus. Again, it's not just about learning the material, it's about gaining those soft skills that employers are really looking for. So join an organization and strive to become president of that organization. That's going to show that you have an interest in doing more than just participating. You want to be a leader, and it gives you those soft skills that you're going to need. Whatever you participated in high school, likely there are clubs and organizations that are similar on your campus, and you can join those. If not, you can start a new student organization. It's pretty easy. All right, I think we got through this quick enough that we can each do a little spiel about our institutions, and the first one up is Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Laurie. Again, my name is Aaron Bixler. I'm the Senior Associate Director of International Enrollment at Miami University. Just a very quick summary of Miami University. Like all of us, we're a public institution. We're located in Oxford, Ohio, which is in the southwest corner of the state of Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati. We have about 20,000 total students, about 17,000 of those being bachelor's degree students. So a definite focus on the undergraduate student. What Miami is known for is really the on-campus student life. It's a very residential campus with about 600 different student organizations. About 98% of our students either live on campus or within 2 miles of the campus. So really promotes a feeling of community for our students, and learning really continues not only in the classroom but beyond. So 120 different majors our students will study in 5 different academic divisions. Most popular option for our international students are our School of Business and our College of Engineering and Computing.
All right, looks like I'm up next again. I'm with Ohio University. We're located in the southeast part of the state, and we are located in the small college town of Athens, Ohio. You can see an aerial view in the slide here. And we were founded in 1804, so we have a long-standing tradition of education in the state. And we have over 250 majors, 17,000 undergraduate students. So we really pride ourselves on the undergraduate experience. We have over 500 student organizations. So like I mentioned before, it's great to get involved. And I encourage you to check us out. Thanks.
Hi, I think I'm next. Again, my name is Megan Lindell. I work with the University of Cincinnati, and University of Cincinnati is an urban public institution located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're right on the border of Kentucky. We have about 46,000 students, so we're a very big campus, but about 35,000 of them are undergraduates, about 3,500 international students from over 115 different countries. We have 3 campuses, 2 branch campuses, 11 different academic colleges. We specialize in our co-op program, so basically getting experience, paid experience outside of the classroom in your field of study. We like to pride ourselves on the fact that we invented the co-op program back in 1906, and we've been doing that ever since. We were founded in 1819, so we're also an older public school here. We're #1 for our co-op program in the US, and we focus a lot on our mandatory co-ops for engineering, design, architecture, and information technology, but also we have optional programs in business, arts, and sciences. And 100% of our students do get experience outside the classroom, so they can graduate with a resume in one hand and a diploma in the other. Thank you.
I think I'm last. And so I really wanted to tell you a little bit more about Kent State University. So we're also a large public research university similar to OU and Cincinnati. We have over 300 programs and majors at the undergraduate and graduate level. This is also some profile information on our international student body with almost 100 countries represented. So a lot of diversity, a lot of great ways to get engaged on campus with student organizations. And also, if you're looking for some programs that maybe are very specialized, such as fashion, architecture, flight, and aerospace engineering, we rank very high in those programs, and we definitely do have them available. We also have great opportunity for study abroad. So many of our programs, such as fashion and architecture, do have a required study away component, so that you're able to not just learn about how things work for your career in the US, but also really around the world. We also have, we're number 5 in terms of patent and research, and we have about 16 faculty members that are Pulitzer Prize winners. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for undergraduate students to get engaged early on in research.
I think you're muted. Oh.
How about that? Got to press unmute too. Well, you all did a fantastic job this afternoon sharing the information. I'm going to throw up a screen just to throw the last bit of information out for everyone. Let me get to the next slide. And so there is a quick survey. If you could please fill that out to let us know how we did this afternoon. Again, just a reminder, we have additional sessions that are on oacac.org. And again, this recording will be available on that same website. So thank you, panel, for a great job this afternoon and sharing that super information. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.